Hey guys, it's Pete again. Week 4 of the lovely Rocket Summer event, created by Michael Cavan with many co-hosts, which I will hopefully remember to link down below. This is the 1960s. We've done the from the Big Bang to 1939, then the 40s, then the 50s, and for this last week, I did a couple short stories. I already did a video on that a couple days ago. J.G. Ballard stories from the '60s. I have two books, both keeping to my own personal restriction of just doing British authors this time. This is PAVANE by Keith Roberts. This is a book and this is the SF Masterworks edition, which is what I read, the ebook version of that. Here's an earlier version of that same cover. Here's a map of Europe. One more. Oh, here's a cool looking. This is an early cover. I like it very much. This illustrates very much what this book is about. It's a alternate history, or a Uchronia. It's also what they call in science fiction a fix-up, although I would call it a mosaic novel, because I like to make the distinction of a book that was written as a series of short stories intended to go together and complement each other, and not a series of magazine stories and its sequels that are put together, for another format. I believe these were written to be presented as individual short stories, but also to work more powerfully as a novel together. This is the cover I had for many years. It was a beautiful Ace paperback. I believe this is by the Dillons, Leo and Diane Dillon, a famous 1960s cover artists. And it is a book like some of the others. Some of the others I'd read before, like 1984 and The Time Machine, that I've done earlier this month, were rereads. This is maybe a reread. I don't remember. I remember trying to read this when I was like 18 or 19. I don't know if I got all the way through it. It did not leave much of an impression on me, and I think it was probably the premise at the time didn't resonate enough with me. What it is, it's based in a world, an alternative present. So it's set in the time it was written, which is the mid '60s, and you can see the tech there: steam engines, crossbows, conquistador-like helmet. So it supposes that what if Elizabeth I of England was assassinated by the Spanish, or by a spy for the Spanish, and then the Armada launched, and the Spanish Armada launched and was not destroyed, as in real history, and Spain takes over England. Eventually, Spain's power wanes, and the main power in Europe becomes the Catholic Church, the seat of Peter, the throne of Peter, is that what they call it? Which rules the American colonies under Spain, and pretty much dominates Europe, defeats the Protestant movements in Germany and places like that, and so it's the world at that time. There's there's a large technological slowdown. And it's made up of 6 stories, 7 really, including the coda. So I think what probably it didn't interest me that much at the time, because I didn't really know that much about history. I still don't know that much about history, but I know a little more. And I thought it was interesting enough premise to read again, but I can't say that I loved it. It's an acknowledged classic. It gets rave reviews. It's from everybody who talks about science fiction, and especially everybody who talks about alternate history. I enjoyed the stories. Keith Roberts' prose style is very dense. So it takes careful reading, and maybe I'm just not a good enough reader anymore to stay with it. but it wasn't a big revelation to me. I'm glad I read it, but the other book that I read this week I enjoyed quite a bit more. Also from the 1960s, and a familiar face if you watched my last week's videos. This is Fred Hoyle. October the 1st is Too Late. Even the cover might look familiar. This is a Valancourt edition. They issue many great books. Reissues. They've done a good selection of Fred Hoyle novels coming out recently, and they all have this kind of uniform cover. Here's a cover. It would have been closer to the time it came out, an American cover, and you can see, from the title and from that, you can see it's a time travel kind of thing. Here's a ugly 80s cover. I think I'm putting it up there because I noticed a couple things about it. First, they're marketing Fred Hoyle as Sir Fred Hoyle by this time. A very famous astronomer, astrophysicist. I think I called him an astronomer last time. Who is most famous, or is one of the most famous scientists ever to write science fiction. One of the most accomplished scientists. He didn't write that many novels. He wrote about 4 or 5 standalone novels, I think. Later in life, he wrote almost all his novels in collaboration with his son Jeffrey. So I haven't read any of those. But also around this time in the 60s, he wrote several other collaborative novels, but 4 or 5 standalones, the most famous of which is The Black Cloud, his first one, and which I enjoyed very much. In fact, even after I did the review, I kept thinking about it. It's a really good book. I hope people will pick it up, especially for the second half, which I didn't talk about because I didn't want to spoil it too much. And I'm going to have the same kind of problem in here with this, but first I want to point out on this cover again, Sir Fred Hoyle, and also another little thing down here for all those who love Gregory Benford's Timescape. So Gregory Benford wrote this book Timescape, which is a big hit in the 80s, enough so that they even this publisher even would start very quickly after this to brand all their books as Timescape with a logo in the front. So this is really them gearing up for that. This kind of gives you a clue about what's going on in this book. It is told from the point of view of a journalist. No, I'm sorry, I don't know why I said journalist. Maybe because many books are told from the point of view of a journalist. A composer who's having trouble with his composition, and he's talking to his friend who's an astrophysicist, and they decide, they're around their 40s, but they decide to take a trip they had planned to take after college but never took, like a road trip. What do you call it? Kind of a camper trip, road trip around Scotland. The characters are all British. While on this trip, the astrophysicist disappears, or seems to disappear, at least from the point of view of the composer. And he goes to the police, and a couple days, they're taking it very seriously because this astrophysicist is a Nobel Prize winner, and then he just turns back up and he can't really explain where he's been, and he knows he can't explain where he's been, meaning he doesn't know where he's been. He was in kind of a fugue state, and from there they are called to observe a phenomenon observed by the big telescope facility in Southern California. They go there, then they go to Hawaii. Once they're in Hawaii, it appears that California has disappeared or been bombed or been attacked. They notice they're investigating some strange solar activity, which they determine is the sun sending information out into space somewhere. So they think there's some big disaster, or perhaps they have a lot of speculations. They hook up with this Australian guy who's got access to a big plane, so they're able to fly back. They fly over the United States. It appears to be unpopulated. They get back to England. It's a month later than in Hawaii, and they start the people in Britain have information that In France, it appears to be 1917. The war's going on, the height of the First World War. They're trying to investigate, but planes don't come back, and this kind of thing. So, what's happening is some kind of radiation, some kind of phenomenon, space phenomenon, is causing the Earth to time fluctuate. Different parts of the Earth are in different time zones. Like they think at the time, this time in the novel, they think America is in the pre-Revolutionary War. There's settlements on the East Coast, but the West Coast is very underpopulated, and they visit different places to try and figure out what's going on. I won't go into all of them. They do go to ancient Greece, which is interesting, and Athens at the height of the civilization in Athens. So many of the places that they end up investigating, trying to figure out this phenomenon, are very central in history. They're not in Athens in the 1900s. They're Athens at the height of civilization, and it's very intriguing. It's got just like the Black Cloud. It's got a deep scientific mystery in it. This one's probably more philosophically speculative in nature than the Black Cloud, which is a little more prosaic. But it's really a good book. I liked it enough that I ordered his. I found on eBay his short story collection, which is called Element 79. It was only $1.99, so I ordered that. I'm going to try and keep reading some more Fred Hoyle. Last time I think I said, I misquoted his theory of the origin of the universe. He is a proponent of what's called the constant state, or I'm messing it up again, continuous state. Meaning that the universe is always here in some form or another, as opposed to the Big Bang, where it came from one central point. In fact, he coined the term the Big Bang as an insult, because he thought it was a ridiculous theory. But it held true, and like so often happens when with a name like that, it becomes the name when it was actually meant to be mocking of the theory. But I believe the Big Bang is mostly accepted now. Although in recent years, I think there's other theories coming to the forefront again. The Big Bang doesn't explain everything, and of course, it doesn't explain what happened before the Big Bang. So I just thought I'd throw that in there. He's a very accomplished person, Fred Hoyle, but his books do turn more towards. They're not just strictly hard science books about that you might expect from from an astrophysicist. They do go and cover more philosophical stuff. So I don't know if I'll get to read anything else. It's the 27th now, but I will say that I'm reading another book for another project. I'm reading Pride and Prejudice, and I'm not going to go into that now. It's an enjoyable book for various reasons, and other things that I'm not enjoying as much about it. But to Fred Hoyle's credit, switching over to October the 1st is too late. It's such a relief to read, to have a break from Pride and Prejudice. People in Fred Hoyle's novels, and in most of the novels, people actually go out and do stuff, which is interesting. And I mean, hanging around and looking for trouble to find you at home is interesting too, in a different way. But it was a nice Fred. I guess what I'm saying is Fred Hoyle makes a nice respite from Jane Austen. Although that's not really a dig on Jane Austen, because I am enjoying many aspects of Pride and Prejudice, and Jane Austen's a wonderful writer, very entertaining writer. I hope to do a video on that soon. Maybe I'll do a couple short stories. I wanted to use the last couple days of this month to do a book from a science fiction book from the 1970s. I had one of mine, but don't know if I'm going to get to it in the next couple of days because I really need to buckle down and finish P&J, or P&P. Maybe I'll get a couple of short stories from the 70s, or maybe I'll just continue Rocket Summer on my own in the 1970s in August. I've picked out a couple of things for Garb August, but I don't know if I'm going to do the whole thing. I don't know if I'm going to really buckle down on it. And then really interesting bingo card and stuff for Garb August, which gave me some ideas of what to read. There's a couple mysteries I think would fit very nicely in that probably no one's covered in Garb August before. I don't know why. I'm just going on and on. So I'll let you go here. That is it for my official 4 weeks of Rocket Summer. We'll talk again.